Released by Dangen Entertainment in February, if you've already heard of Devil Engine, you've probably heard two things about it. One, that it's very good, and two, that it's very hard. The first of those claims I have no issue with, but I'm struggling a little to see quite where the second one came from. Don't get me wrong, Devil Engine is hard. It's very hard. But of course it's hard, it's a shmup, one modelled after the old classics, and they were all hard. But Devil Engine isn't, as far as I'm concerned, notably hard, and certainly not in a way that it could be considered a minus point. On the contrary, the game does a great job of creating challenge and rewarding you for your progress. I think part of the reason it picked up this reputation is because of the way the game starts. Without offering you a choice, it throws you into the first level on its very hard mode. Inevitably you die pretty quickly, and are then taken back to the menu where a very easy option opens up, replete with mocking subtitles referring to it as a kids mode, or asking what's the matter, scared? Now this is where I fear a lot of that super difficult reputation has come from. I've seen people saying there should be a normal mode, but honestly, very easy is the normal mode. As soon as you start playing, you realise it is demonstrably not very easy, and once he's seen it will be a pretty tough challenge for most gamers, even of above average skill. I think the problem is there's a joke, if that's the correct word, that's being lost on a lot of people here. Lots of shmups have these mockingly titled easier modes. The Psycho ports refer to theirs variously as Kids, Baby, or even Monkey. If you unlock Expert mode, you can actually see this humour extended, as that mode receives subtitles like For Nobody. None of this is side-splittingly hilarious, but I think if you're happy enough with your own prowess, you should be able to laugh off these jibes and just enjoy the game, whatever your skill level. Anyway, on to the game itself. Devil Engine is essentially a classic side-scrolling shmup, one that just happens to have been released in 2019. It doesn't try to reinvent the genre in any way, it doesn't depend on some gimmick, it just puts you in control of a ship with an upgradable standard shot and a bunch of bombs, and lets you loose against 5 and a bit stages, enemies, bosses, bullets, lasers, environmental hazards, and it barely lets up for a second from start to finish, which is just how I like it. Your ship, called the Andraste, has 3 weapons, a laser, a spread shot, and a homing shot, each upgradable a maximum of twice. The upgrade system is simple but smart. If you have the laser equipped and pick up a laser icon, you will upgrade the laser. However, if you pick up another shot type, you'll simply switch to that shot, remaining on whatever level of upgrade you are already at. So if you have the homing shot at level 2 and pick up a spread shot, you'll switch to a level 2 spread shot and now need another spread shot to upgrade to the 3rd level. This is a simple but effective little system and does a lot to keep the game interesting. Each shot is very different, with the laser being the most powerful, but obviously only hitting whatever's right in front of you, the spread shot being powerful through sheer volume of bullets, and the homing shot being weak, but with the advantage of always striking a target. Each shot type also has a related bomb, although in Devil Engine these bombs are quite different from the screen clearing type we see in most shmups, and are instead used more for the purpose of temporarily increasing your firepower, without providing any real defensive advantage. One thing we haven't mentioned so far is what the game calls burst. Pressing Y activates this burst and eliminates a small number of enemy bullets in your immediate vicinity. This obviously can't be used constantly, but it can be used often. However, doing so isn't as advantageous as you might think. While it can be a literal lifesaver when in a tight spot, you'll want to use it sparingly, as killing enemies in succession gradually increases your score multiplier up to a value of ×5. And anytime you use burst, the multiplier drops. Well, I don't really care about scoring, you might think, but that doesn't matter, because the game does. You get an extra bomb every 5,000 points and an extra life every 50,000, so keeping that multiplier high can lead to picking up bombs and lives at 5 times the rate someone spamming burst would be able to do. This is arguably the game's key mechanic, as you're constantly considering whether it's worth the risk of dodging through a bullet pattern or taking the scoring hit to burst your way to safety. In a further twist, bursting near a shot pickup changes the pickup type. This can be absolutely key, as some sections of certain levels are made hugely easier with the right shot equipped and hugely more difficult with the wrong one. Sometimes this could actually be a little frustrating. If you go into some sections or bosses with the wrong shot type, sometimes it felt like you might as well just give up, since the disadvantage was too great. The main stages are all divided into two distinct halves, with a mid-boss separating the two parts. The change between the two halves is well handled and makes each stage feel varied both in terms of gameplay as well as visually. Stage 2, for example, sees you first travelling through a jazzy metropolis before coming into a flaming city ruin in the second half, while Stage 4 sees you zooming over the ocean, then taking off through the clouds for a second half spent battling a fleet of enemy ships waiting off planet. Of course, each stage also has an end boss, but weirdly, I often found the mid-bosses at least as difficult as the end bosses. And this kind of brings us to another reason why I think this game might have acquired its reputation for difficulty. Until very late on, the difficulty is about the same level throughout the whole game. Stage 4 isn't that much harder than Stage 1. Most shmups will break you in gently, but Devil Engine just lets you have it right from the off. Again, I like it that way, but maybe not everyone does. Although the end of the game does reach a crescendo in terms of difficulty, for the most part the game maintains roughly the same level for much of its length. Unfortunately, when the game is difficult, it can sometimes feel unfair. Some environmental hazards are not clearly demarcated, and on my first runs through the forest section in particular, I crashed into tree trunks more times than I care to remember, before eventually memorising the route. Earlier in the same stage, shots come at you from the background, and again, on your first time trying the stage, you're not going to know what's going on and will die probably many times before working out what's hitting you. Aside from these couple of poorly signalled situations, however, as you can probably see from this footage, when it comes to visuals and presentation, Devil Engine is fabulous. Everything runs smoothly and every level is visually distinct, with backgrounds just interesting enough to provide character, but not too busy so as to be distracting. There's also a beautifully put together, although rather short, little intro sequence that's ripped a page straight from the 90s anime playbook that I think played a big part in grabbing people's attention pre-release on YouTube. The soundtrack is superb too, with music suited to each stage and a mix of styles of genres, all at just the right tempo for blasting bad guys. This game also provides you with several visual options, and most of these are unlocked through your accumulated score. There are multiple variations of bullet colours, as well as a whole host of filters, including a nice little nod to Zero Ranger. These are both cool and fun in their own right, as well as adding a bit of encouragement and reward for players to keep plugging away after having had their ass handed to them one time too many by a particularly brutal boss. I did feel though the unlocks came perhaps a tad too quickly. Long before you're done with the game, the unlocks will be done with you. Not everyone is going to stick with the game as long as I did, and those people may need a bit more incentive than the challenge of going for a 1cc to keep them coming back, but I still think the unlocks could have been a bit more spaced out while still meeting that aim. There are also plenty of other ways to play the game, with challenge modes opening up the more you play. These include classic challenges like simply staying alive, as well as more intriguing ones like using your burst to knock a sphere around in a shmup version of Breakout. You'll eventually unlock a boss rush mode too, as well as extra difficulties and an extra stage, and maybe most significantly a second ship, the Skathach, which plays vastly differently to the standard Andraste. Of course there's also scoreboards, but these are local only. While a lot of shmups still don't have online boards, this feels like more of a miss here simply because of the otherwise incredibly high level of polish in the game. I did reach out to the developers over this, and they said it's something they'd like to look into, but there were no promises. Looked at overall, Devil Engine is a very strong package in every area where it really counts. There were a couple of little niggles I found while playing. The quick restart isn't all that quick, and I found the fact that you can't use the thumbstick to navigate the menus when in handheld mode, instead being forced to use the up, down, left, right buttons, almost bizarrely obtuse. There's also an odd little thing on the end of level clear screen where you can fire bombs and deplete your stock despite the level being over. I'm sure most people instinctively just push buttons to try to skip things forward in these situations based on decades of past experience, and it took me a long time to train myself to stop wasting bombs in this way. None of these are remotely grievous offences, but they do add up and prevent the game feeling quite as perfect as it could. All in all though, this is an excellent, fast and frantic shmup with polished presentation and a ton of extra modes and incentives to keep on playing. It is difficult, but not as off-puttingly so as you may have been led to believe. And whether you're interested in scoring or aiming for a 1cc, the game has you covered whatever your skill level. I've already put a ton more time into this than many shmups on the Switch I've had in my collection for far longer, and I'm nowhere near done with the game yet. While it's not perfect, I think this may be the best shmup I've picked up for Switch in 2019 so far, and I'm happy to recommend it and give it a score of 8.5. So this one has been out for a couple of months now. Let me know what you thought of it if you've already played it, or if you pick it up in the future, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Cheers!